What's it like when your birth plan doesn't match the reality? You'll spend so much time thinking about pregnancy and baby, and then you could be hit with a delivery or postpartum experience you might not have prepared for. That's what we're talking about today, among other topics, with Ashlee Martinez. Ashlee's a mom to a 3-year-old with one on the way and the owner of the MySun&Soul boutique. She's also the organizer of mom meets for moms of any age in the San Diego area. Today, we'll get into everything from birth plans to surprises postpartum to why leaning on other moms is so crucial. Plus, Ashlee will tell us a bit about what inspired her journey from first-time mom to entrepreneur, working to connect, build communities, empower, support, and celebrate all the moms out there. This is Getting Started with Baby, the podcast that brings you practical tips, loved products, and lived experience from parents who've been there. Brought to you by thestarterset.com, an upcoming service focused on helping parents find just the right things at the right time, personalized for their families. I'm your host, Jane Deshefsky, a mom on the other side of 2 under 2. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm working to make this parenting journey a little bit easier. Let's get into it. Welcome, Ashlee.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about this. I love what you're doing.
We're super excited to have you as well. So to get started, could you maybe share a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yes. So my name is Ashlee. I'm located here in San Diego, and I have a 3-year-old son, and I'm currently pregnant with my first daughter.
Congratulations. That's so exciting.
And I'm super excited to see our family growing.
So tell me a little bit about MySun&Soul. What is MySun&Soul?
So MySun&Soul is a business that I started originally. It was called My Son and Myself. And I started it when my son was about 1.5, 2. I wanted to create a business that was essentially more than just a business. So it started as mom teas that I would sell at the La Jolla Farmers Market. And they would say funny things like "Mama needs a venti" and things like that, just to bring smiles to moms' faces. But I wanted to have a store where moms could come treat themselves, because one of the things with postpartum that I learned is you sometimes don't feel like your body is your own. And it can feel very foreign, trying to put new clothes on and kind of having to substitute something looking good for it to feel comfortable, especially if you're breastfeeding. So I wanted to have a store where everything was tailored to moms, growing bodies, whether you're pregnant, postpartum. It has to be breastfeeding friendly. Everything that I bring in, comfortable but also cute. So I wanted it to all be that. But outside of that, instead of it just being a place for moms to come shop, I wanted to have something totally separate from it. And that's my mom meets that I do every month. I do about 2 to 3 per month. And I invite local moms from San Diego all around, even all the way up to Newport. We've done it. And we just pick a place, a local small business. We come spend quality time. I don't sell anything or talk shop there. It's literally just us moms getting together to talk all things birth, postpartum, mom struggles, kind of a lot of the things that don't get talked about, especially on social media. Just a genuine place where we can all feel comfortable and safe enough to be like, hey, I went through this. My birth was traumatic. Or are you guys experiencing this crazy thing, or am I alone? And I've created this community of moms.
That's amazing. And a lot of what you said resonates with me as well, obviously, as a mom to a 2.5 and a 4. I forget where I am in time. I'm super curious, what about that experience in the beginning for you made you motivated to start with those teas in the La Jolla Farmers Market and to take it to the mom groups?
So for me, I had a very traumatic experience with having my son. It was my first baby. You go in, you want to say you have no expectations, but of course you do. And I went into it thinking it's going to be a normal birth and all the things, and he'll be here soon. And when it happened, it actually took me 2 full days of labor to get him out. We at a birth center, and because I wanted to do the whole natural holistic route with midwives, and it was honestly a beautiful experience. But he was stuck. So after hour 50 something, I was like, we're going to the hospital. Got transferred to the hospital. If I told the whole birth story, it's kind of like a comedy movie, that everything that could go wrong is, we went the wrong direction to the hospital because we drove ourselves. He's literally coming out. We go down the wrong street, hit all these potholes, have to turn back around, go down the pothole street, get back on the freeway. Just insanity. It was nuts. And then after, I think we stopped counting after hour 55, they had to do the vacuum suction cup. Got him out. After that, the whole postpartum experience was really hard on me because I think I went into it kind of only looking for postpartum depression signs. And I kept telling myself, we didn't get it. We're good, And a couple years go by and I look back and I'm like, wow, I had really bad postpartum anxiety. And that was something that I was never talked to about. I didn't know that was a thing. So because of the birth, I didn't want anybody to hold my son, breathe on my son, nothing, because I was so afraid that something was going to happen to him. And looking back, I feel so bad for that me, because poor girl, Of course, I had my family, I had my husband, and I had my son, but I never realized how much I isolated myself just to live in that little safety bubble. So I didn't ask for help. I didn't make friends. I literally just stayed in our room and watched my son breathe. And so when I was watching him grow up a little bit before I started everything, I was like, I bet there are so many other moms that have gone through the same thing. And I wish that at that time I would have been more open to making mom friends, because I never knew how vital it is to have people to relate to. My very first mom meet, I had 4 moms show up and I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, let's just do it. We got there, we all talked birth, tears were shed. The moms were so honest with me about the things that they went through. I remember one that really sat with me was one of the moms was like, I feel guilty because I feel like I kind of missed that beginning of her life, even though I was there and taking care of her, but I was just in survival mode. And so she felt that guilt. And, on the outside, we can all be like, oh, no, it's not your fault. Like, you don't have to feel like that. But it's such a natural thing to feel those things, and it's such a real thing to be in survival mode in the beginning with your first and feel like you miss so much, even though you're right there, because you're trying to just make it through the days, sleepless, worried, anxious. And then you look back and you're like, dang, I wish I knew then what I knew now. And it's just crazy because I remember when I was pregnant and right after I had him, anytime I was on Instagram, anything mom related that I would come across was very like perfect mommy, Mm-hmm. Nobody was talking about traumatic births or, it was like use your stress comb and breathe your baby out and things like that. And so I went into the birth expecting that I could do that, did all this research of like coping skills and things like that. And when I got in the birth room, I realized I was like, oh my God, nobody prepared me for this. So I really pride myself with MySun&Soul. I always make sure that I come in an authentic way and I don't just talk about the ups, because when you are constantly only seeing the good parts of motherhood, there's moms out there that are not experiencing those good parts and they're wondering, why am I only going through this? And it makes them feel lonely and isolated. And something that I've learned so much from it is really leaning on other mothers. It's so important.
Yeah.
It makes you feel validated. It makes you feel normal.
I mean, it's so hard to know what normal is when you only have 1 or 2 instances to compare against, right? So that makes such sense. I mean, you touched on so many different, incredibly important topics for moms. I think even the interesting part of managing the expectations of what that birth looks like versus what the reality might turn out to be, having that village around you, building that village with other moms, what it's like to experience anxiety or depression post-birth, right? That's something that I think is becoming a little bit better known. But to your point, anxiety isn't talked about as much as depression sometimes. So those are all such important topics. One, I'd love to circle back on it. You talked about you had a certain set of expectations going into the birth. Talk to me a little bit more about how you kind of reconciled the expectations versus reality, and how building this mom group is giving you the chance to help other moms through that.
When I was pregnant, I did try to educate myself as much as I could, because it's obviously an experience that you don't know what to really expect until it happens. So I kind of just felt like I had such an easy pregnancy with my son, and I kind of expected the whole ideal holistic birth of birthing in the tub and having the aromatherapy and it be really peaceful, and I was just gonna breathe him out. And I did the hypnobirthing classes with the ice in the hand and the birth comb, and I packed the most beautiful bag and had the best snacks, all of the things. I was like, I've got this in the bag and I can't wait for him to be here. And once I got into that birthing room, it all went out of my head. I had no clue. I had 3 brain cells working together to figure out what was happening. And it was something that I really learned there, was that it's all intuitive. You really have to give into your body and let it do what it's supposed to do. But also the biggest thing that I learned from it is that having the expectations, writing the perfect birth plan, most likely aren't going to go that way. And with my son, it was because he had his hand up by his face. So he would start crowning and then go all the way back. After the birth, I kind of was like, oh my goodness, that was so intense. That was nothing like I expected. It was literally 2 days of just torture. It felt like just constant pain and fear, because it was taking so long that I was so afraid that something bad was going to happen and it was going to be my fault. And I think that also made me feel more lonely, because I had never really heard a birth experience like mine. What I really love with the mom group is, when I started it, I was like, I'm going to be very open and honest about my birth. And so I told my birth story. And I was expecting nobody to be able to relate, but then moms were jumping in like, oh girl, let me tell you, I didn't make it to 50 hours, but I went 24 and did this, and this happened, and had to have an emergency C-section. And then another mom would jump in like, oh, me too, girl. And, we would get the couple that were like, I pushed for 10 minutes, and we're all like, must be nice. But it's so cool, because there's a lot of times that you'll feel very alone, not just in motherhood, but in the world, and it can make you feel really small, wondering, is this only just me? And then you hang out with these moms and you're like, oh my God, we've all gone through such similar things.
Such an empowering message of you building that village, not just for yourself, but for other moms in the area. I'm curious, now that you have the perspective of that first birth experience and the perspective of this kind of broader group of moms, how are you thinking about your upcoming birth?
Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm going to do it the exact same way. So I'm going to a birth center in La Jolla, and I thought that after the last birth that I would feel fear. Like, oh my goodness, how could I make it through that once, let alone twice if it happens again, right? But if it happens again, at least I know kind of what I can expect. And now I can actually be in that mindset of okay, what are the coping skills that I learned last time that I didn't use? What are some that I've learned from moms this time around in the groups? Because I do ask each other for advice.
What are some of those tips, especially for that labor and delivery process?
So I actually did a story last night, and I was posting the answers today because they were really good. I had asked if any moms out there had tips and advice for moms that were going to be giving birth this year. There were a couple that were like, really advocate for yourself, which is so, so, so important. And a lot of the reason why we chose to do birth centers is because a lot of times you go to hospitals and you will kind of feel vulnerable because you're in this space of fear. You're literally at your most vulnerable. And when you're in that scared moment, you're like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And you'll completely put your beliefs, your birth plan, all the things to the side because you're going to trust this person to help you get out of this scary place. So it's really important that moms advocate for themselves and have a partner, a doula, whatever, to be there, that if you can't do it for yourself, have somebody do it for you. I feel like this time going around into birthing again, I'm really excited.
Yeah, and perspective is so key. I remember just being glad to have had the opportunity to have a second child too, because it was such a different headspace the second time, the first time. With the perspective that you have now as postpartum care, what do you know now that you wish you had known that first time?
So definitely the nitty-gritty of it all. I remember when I was freshly postpartum, my midwives were pretty good about educating me on things, but there were some things that I had to learn myself by Googling, which can be a very scary thing when you're postpartum. But even things like lochia, I never knew that was a thing. You know, people will just tell you you'll bleed after birth and that's it. You know, they'll just say, prepare for that. But they don't tell you like the actual details of it. So when I was experiencing that part of it, I didn't even talk to my husband about things because I felt embarrassed. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. And so I'm Googling and whatever, and I'm doing my research. And I was like, dang, I wish somebody would have told me about this because I was so scared to even Google stuff that was happening because I felt like it must only be for me. And then I Googled them and I was like, oh my God, this is supposed to happen. Really taking care of not just your body. I did the self-care and the mental care. You know, even down to the Loving Your Stripes kind of project about loving your stripes, because before I was a mom, my body would fluctuate a lot with weight. I would gain weight, lose weight, lose weight, all the things. So I've had stretch marks for as long as I could remember. But I chose in my motherhood to really celebrate those things because I earned even more stripes having my son. I was huge. I gained almost 70 pounds. It was a body that I was not used to. I would look at myself in the mirror and be like, I don't know who you are. And I remember I would talk a lot of negative things about it in front of my husband. And one day he had just had enough and he was like, look, I've been patient with you because I know you're freshly postpartum, but I'm going to tell you something. You have to stop talking about your body that way because that was our son's first home. And it really hit me hard because I was like, wow, I did not think about it like that. You know, I was just so stuck on none of my clothes fit. I can't find anything that looks good on me anymore. And when he said that, it stuck with me forever because I was like, I am my son's first home. Every single one of these stripes that I got, my stretch marks, there's so many moms out there that maybe they don't realize that they can also love those things about themselves. And maybe they don't realize that they were their baby's first home. Been collecting pictures from other moms, and I've encouraged them to take pictures of their stretch marks. I'm making a post where I'm going to share all of them, and they're anonymous, of course. Whether you got a bunch of stripes or maybe 2 stripes or whatever, I want to celebrate that.
That's an amazing way to look at it. One of the things that we'll be doing with the starter set, which will be to help parents sort through different product and service recommendations that make sense for them. And so in the spirit of that, I'd love to ask you if there was something that was a game changer for you in terms of either your prepartum experience or postpartum.
So something that I have been talking about with a lot of moms, especially if they're going to be first-time moms, is when you're creating that baby registry, I know it's so much fun and it's so exciting to see all the cute baby things, and you kind of go a little bit crazy and you're like, I need all these things for baby, right? Which is what I did. Got most of the things off the registry as gifts. And then birth, postpartum, all that, I realized majority of it we didn't use. And so this time around, instead of adding all the cute onesies and the little toys and all that stuff, I'm going to make this registry primarily for me because I'm the one giving birth. I'm the one that's going to have to do the postpartum care afterwards. She will get so many clothes gifted to her, and she has. So I really tailored my registry for me, and I've been telling mom, this is my number one tip when you're making your registry. You have to focus on you. Things that you're really going to use. And for me, a lot of that was like the Frida brand, the ice pads. Those things were probably the biggest lifesaver for me because I had a lot of the pelvic bone aching, and those were a godsend. So I have my pantry stuffed right now with those.
Oh man, I second that. I wish I had known those existed the first time.
Oh yeah, when the nurses gave me the packs at the hospital the first time around, I literally just sat there and I was like, "Oh my God, what are these? I need these in my life more." And they really carried me through those first few weeks. So I always keep those stocked. Those are stocked to the brim right now. And then also outside of that, a little things for baby that we could not live without was the Frida snot sucker. And the Frida Wendy's. And of course, you don't have to get this brand, but I've found that they're the most reliable and the quality's really good. But the Wendy's saved our lives with our son because he had 5 oral ties. And we didn't know it at first, but he was a really good nurser. It's just his latch was shallow, and so he would take in air and get really painful gas. And I can't remember who got the Wendy's for us, but I kind of felt weird using them because I was like, I don't want to hurt him, because it's just a very little tube, and you just put it right in their bottoms, just a tiny bit. And I just never would have thought about having these things because they always, do the bike legs and give the gas drops and things, but none of those things were working for us. So finally one day, after hearing him scream in pain for so long, I was like, I'm just going to do it. We did the Wendy, instant relief for him, and you could just see it wash over his little body. And I was like, we are adding these every single time we have babies. So that was our number one thing in the snot sucker.
Yeah. Do you give those as gifts now?
I do, actually, yeah. I'll get a couple things off of mom's registries that are actually on there, and then I'll throw in those 2 things. I'm like, here's the snot sucker and here's the Wendy. I know they sound weird, but if you have any questions, just call me, and they will, because they're like, I've never heard of these things before.
What about, was there anything else on that registry list that in retrospect you're like, why did I get this? Or even in your own postpartum care journey that you thought you'd really need but didn't really end up using very much?
I'm trying to think because I remember my registry was pages because I was so freaking excited and I just wanted everything that was baby related. It just felt like magical. So I think I put on there a lot of clothes, and what else did I have? I think I got like a lot of books picked out on there, teething toys and stuff like that. And I was always picking out like the giraffe, that expensive giraffe that everybody gets. I forget
Sophie the giraffe.
Sophie the giraffe. So I had like all of those things on there, especially the pricier stuff, because I was like, ooh, this is really nice, And a year and a half into having my son, I'm cleaning out his room and I'm like, so much of this stuff is still in the box. Majority of the clothes had tags on them still because I was picking everything newborn, and he came out ready to wear 0 to 3. And he did not like Sophie the giraffe, couldn't care less about her. I had a ton of binkies on there. He hated binkies. Tons of swaddles, hated swaddles. And so this time around, I skipped all of those things because I realized, yeah, it does feel good to have all of those things if you need them. But in reality, a lot of the times you're not going to need them. And you can kind of overwhelm yourself too. And I feel like the simpler, the better, honestly. And when you really focus on the things that you need, like I even put this time around things like my favorite lip balms to keep in my my little side where we keep the bassinet, because you don't think about that. I never put anything like that on my last list. I had baby lotions, baby soaps, and then I constantly found myself having to go to the store to get stuff for me. And that's not a lot of fun when you're freshly postpartum. Because,
Yeah.
it feels good to take care of yourself, and you don't really get to do that a lot when you're a mom.
Yeah.
Your brain is constantly kids. What do the kids need? Doctor's appointments. What does the spouse in the house need? And you forget about yourself a lot, which was kind of coming back to MySun&Soul. What inspired me to do all of this was we deserve to have that. And that's why it's not just a shop. It's everything and more. Reminding moms of all the things that we do and really just being able to love on each other where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's a really great segue to actually find out a little bit more. I know you mentioned you're working on the Stripes project, but what else is next for MySun&Soul, and what do you want listeners to take away?
So I'm actually going to be taking a little break for a while because I'm due in August. When I come back, I'm not sure when it will be, because I know I'm a busybody and I can't help myself. I am going to jump right back into the mom meets and kind of see where I can take it, collaborating with some brands and some like yoga instructors and things like that, and having fun with it. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's amazing. It sounds like there are a lot of things on deck and big changes personally and for MySun&Soul as well. And we're excited to see where that continues to go. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such an interesting conversation and so much important ground that we covered. To keep up with what Ashlee's doing with MySun&Soul, or to look out for that next mom meet, you can follow Ashlee on Instagram at MySun&Soul, or head to the website MySun&Soul.com. Check the episode description for links. Thanks so much for listening. Till next time.